like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads for a moment of silence. Thank you. Council, are there any items that need to be added or deleted from the agenda?
I don't have anything.
Ma'am. Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And now I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Katie, did we have anyone signed up for public hearing?
Nobody signed up.
Okay, or public comment? All right, Kenny, consideration of approval of the coronavirus intergovernmental agreement, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Council, this was an item on our last agenda on our last meeting. It is the Guilford County received some CARES Act money, and they distributed to all municipalities, and they distributed us about $40,070. It can be used for COVID-related expenses. At our last meeting, we tabled this item, and I did check with all the incorporated areas to see if everybody had accepted it. Most of them said they didn't have enough expenses, so they did not accept it. But City of Greensboro, High Point, and Summerfield, they all executed the contract. So Beth has reviewed it. I think it would be in best interest of the town of Jamestown to go ahead and execute the agreement, just in case there are some unknown expenses that may come up between now and December 30th. So I would like a motion to approve the contract agreement.
Motion to approve the contract.
Well, can we
Go
just,
ahead. Sorry.
just a minute, please? I think I made my feelings clear last month about this, and they haven't changed. Of course, I always want to accept money if the town of Jamestown could get some. But the way this contract is written, I just don't think it's in the best interest for the town. With this FEMA first requirement, we can submit something to FEMA tonight and we'll not be reimbursed by December, I can tell you that. So with that one thing right there, chances of even getting any money from this, I think is pretty slim.
It is slim.
And then, of course, I worry about this penalty and interest we would have to pay back. And Guilford County, we have to hold them not liable, even though they can advise us on if something's reimbursable. If they say yes, we find out later it isn't, they're out of the picture. It's the town has to pay. You don't know what would that interest be. And then we'd also have to do the single audit expense. Even if we got $500, let's say, and a single audit costs $2,000 at the end of the year. So, I mean, I'm fine for everyone to accept it or whatever, but I don't think it's in the best interest of Jamestown, and I don't see anything coming from it.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
It's a very good opinion. I withdraw my motion.
I've got the same opinion as Mark.
Well,
Is this something that if we get to November and had significant expenses, we could go back and enter into
You
this
could
agreement?
not.
You've got to do it now.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to go through FEMA if we got, big
Okay.
expenses.
But we'd have to go through
This is
FEMA
just
anyway.
another opportunity for reimbursement, but
But I agree with
like I
Martha.
said, if we don't approve it, then, I mean, there's nothing lost here unless we get some huge expense. I don't
Which we
know.
would be submitting to FEMA anyway.
I wonder, that $40,000, of course, is doled out on population. And if we don't accept this, so does the county get to keep that 40,000 in their?
As far as I know,
they use
it goes back in their pocket.
Well, it really is, it's not fair the way it's written, but that's just.
Well, I checked with Zeb over in Randolph County, and he said they didn't tie theirs to FEMA, so
So,
theirs is pretty easy, but,
But
They
Guilford
did or
County-
did not.
Ma'am,
They did or did
They
not?
did not.
they did not.
But that's
Well,
Randolph
that's
County.
what Judy had said, that several counties had not tied
No.
into FEMA. And I asked one of the commissioners about it and did not get any feedback.
Yeah.
Did Marty ever call you back?
No, I didn't contact Marty. Somebody else I contacted, I can't think who it was, in their office, but yes, they did contact me back. And my question was, if FEMA did not cover it, would they cover it? He said more than likely they would look at it. So,
Well, that's reversed. If it was, I think the coronavirus relief fund, you should be able to apply for
Well-
it first and then FEMA second.
well,
But
my thing is too, Martha, Councilman, is I'd file there anyway. I'm going, even if we do have an expense and I file with FEMA, whatever, I would file it with Guilford County too, just to see,
well, you'd have to pay it back.
Sure,
But FEMA has to approve it before the county's gonna give it, and FEMA takes.
I'd still
years.
send it to Guilford
I was
County.
gonna say, you won't get it by December.
No. But everything up to December 30th. In other words, you can't file anything after December for reimbursement.
Right, gotcha.
So if you go ahead and file something, let's say in November, it would be considered reimbursable.
Right, yeah.
So,
What are we at as far as expense right now? Seemed like last time we talked, it was only a little less than
It's,
$4,000.
yeah, I think it's like $4,500. And what's a little bit of concern is FEMA's actually changed they have an interim policy on COVID expenses. And it's basically cutting out a lot of items. And this is where I was thinking it may be helpful for this, is they're actually saying it has to be like in an emergency situation before FEMA would even cover it. We have expenses that are not really emergency related. So I was thinking, well, if that's the case, then I'm gonna submit it to Guilford County for reimbursement. So
didn't there
FEMA's now
say
got a
that-
little stricter on what you can do with that, what you can file for during the COVID.
And the county's only requiring you to file for it. Does it have to be denied by FEMA before the county considers it?
Yes, it would have to be denied. And my thing now is, since they came up with the interim policy, is I'm gonna file it with Guilford County and say, this was an expense, it was not budgeted, and we want reimbursement for it.
Then I'm confused. I thought the county said that we had to be approved for those funds through FEMA, and they were just gonna give us the funds through the county. So you have to go through the FEMA process.
You've got to go
They're
through the
asking to
FEMA
go through-
process first
First, before they would consider it.
and ask them for monies from FEMA, not this 40,000.
Right.
Then if we don't get that, then you could apply to the county for.
And then my thing now is, okay, since FEMA changed their policy, and one of the stipulations of this contract was that, that it was also, you didn't have it budgeted. And my argument's gonna be, well, to us, it was an emergency. It's things we had to have.
Yeah.
So FEMA's now, they're not gonna take it. So I'm gonna turn around to the county and go, here.
But
So I would file theirs anyway, regardless. I'd rather let them reject me and say no, rather than going,
but what
I
about
think it's the
that?
money's there, we may not never get any of it, I
What
don't
about
know.
that time factor? If we don't hear back from FEMA, an approval or a rejection by December, then we can't file anything with the county?
I haven't heard
Because you
that.
might not hear back from FEMA, who knows how long?
Yeah, FEMA, you never know.
So then you would be past the deadline according to this contract
Yeah.
for filing anyway. It's just not written very beneficial.
Well,
for
and I agree with you.
town.
I've read it.
Yeah,
Beth's gone through it.
Yeah.
Even in the CARES Act, it never mentions FEMA in there. And that's what
I know.
I had a concern with, but I thought, well, you know what? It's there, it's on the table. It doesn't prevent me from going to Guilford County and going, here, we bought a piece of equipment that cost us, I don't know, it's about, $1,000 for sanitation. So FEMA's not going to cover it now.
Yeah.
So now if they're not going to cover it, then I'm going to send it to Guilford County and go, we didn't have it budgeted. It was not an emergency. Because if you file with FEMA, it has to be an emergency type situation.
Gotcha.
So that's going to cut a lot of people trying to file through FEMA. And I'm thinking our only other option is to go through Guilford County.
Is the terminology that the expenses have to be first rejected or approved by FEMA?
It never says, did it say in the
I
contract?
think it says, I'm trying to
Rejected
remember.
or approved?
I do remember reading that.
It says municipalities shall seek reimbursement from FEMA public assistance for eligible expenditures prior to requesting reimbursement of the coronavirus relief fund allocation. Documentation shall be provided for FEMA denials or partial funding. And I interpreted that to mean that we have to receive an answer from FEMA as to whether they will accept or deny our request before we can get reimbursed from the county. Now, I did have a question as to whether we could go ahead and apply to the county, maybe tell them that we have applied to FEMA, we have no answer, but here are our expenses, we would like for them to fund us. My other question was, in the original CARES Act, was this requirement there? That you had to apply to FEMA first
Yeah,
before, or is this
No, I didn't
something
see it.
Guilford County added?
yeah.
Or is it something that the state added? I've had a little bit of experience with this with another municipality, and this requirement was never mentioned. So again, that's just my question. I did reach out to a couple of my colleagues to see if I could get that question answered, but I haven't had a response.
How about with the county attorneys?
I did not reach out to the county attorney. I wanted to try a couple of other avenues first. And again, it sort of is what it is. I don't know that they will change it just because we don't like it. However, if that requirement was never in the original CARES Act, I just wonder if we couldn't push back a little bit and say, look, it was never in there. Why are you adding it now?
And if we have expenses that are COVID related, but we know that FEMA is not going to reimburse them, why can we not apply to the county for expenses that we know the FEMA is not going to
Yeah, and that's the
reimburse us,
thing.
but it was COVID related?
Well, you can, but you've got to have that either rejection or acceptance from FEMA first before.
Well, what I'm gonna do is say, well, now FEMA's
Yeah.
went into a interim policy, which we thought was covered.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna submit it to you, Guilford County, and let you reject me, and I'm gonna go, hey, wait a minute.
What was the
had-
date on FEMA's new policy?
Ma'am?
What was the date that FEMA changed their policy versus
I think
what
it
was the date that Guilford
September.
County?
There was a date in there that went effective. It was September, it'll be September 20th.
Okay,
They're gonna
so
change it.
Guilford County's document was in place before FEMA altered theirs.
Mhm. So my thing
I would
was to,
say
and I understand your
needs to be
comments,
visited.
but my thing is, if we go ahead and approve it, we don't use it, we're not at loss. But I'm not gonna let it sit there and not ask for reimbursement.
What is our
Because it may
deadline?
go through, I don't know. So
What's our deadline to apply?
Well,
they had it as soon
December,
as possible.
but, I mean, yeah, it's for expenses through the end of December.
Okay,
And I would
but I was
come,
saying the
Yeah, I would-
application to apply.
before we apply for anything, I would make sure I go to Beth and council, let you know. But the worst thing they can do is reject me. I mean, But at least it would be in place if we did. And like I said, there may be something that happens in November that may, 2020 hadn't ended.
That's true.
And I don't know, and John, you made me aware of that. But, there may be something catastrophic that happens that we just don't know. And I would hate not to have this there. I mean, if we approve and it sits over there, which I hate to say this, on the side of my desk, and we don't use it, you know, it's no loss. But I would, when we start applying for it, you know, we'll be a little cautious about it. But my thing is, you know, even if FEMA rejects it or they don't reject it, I'm gonna submit stuff anyway and go, it was an expense we had. No, FEMA won't cover it. So are you going to?
So
Is there
the
any danger to letting it sit one more month and giving you a chance to get with Marty and?
Well, I think I would go ahead because we got it last month. And I know what you mean, but you know, I'd like to go ahead and get it out of the way. I know, like I said, Greensboro, High Point, and Summerfield went ahead. The other ones are pretty much, well, I think we're the only ones now that have not really said yes or no. But
Do you remember if Oak Ridge, did they accept it or Stokesdale?
they said they didn't have.
They didn't have it.
They just didn't have
So they're
any
just-
expenses at
yeah.
all with it, so.
Right, okay.
Well, I mean, it sounds like there's no harm in approving it at this point, is there? I mean, do we see any, if it's just
I'm
gonna
not
sit?
hearing any
Beth, I don't see no
harm.
harm in it, do you?
I think it probably is what it is.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I would be interested to know though where they came up with this wording and where they came up with the agreement. At this point, I don't think it matters really.
Yeah.
They're not, apparently everybody else has gone along with this scheme of dispersing funds.
Well,
I shouldn't use the word scheme, method.
we know what you mean.
Method, yeah.
My thing is, even if it's an item we can't apply to FEMA, I'm gonna apply with Gilbert County. Regardless. I mean,
All right. Well,
they're the ones, they have to review it, they have to disperse the funds and, you know.
And it may be that the wording is a little on the vague side. It may be that what they intend is we apply to both and we have to submit our request no later than December 1, 2020. But maybe we submit it and tell them that we have applied and they will make the decision whether we're entitled to it based on what FEMA replies, because we are allocated a certain amount of funds.
Yeah, supposedly.
40,000 and some change. So
Yeah.
there is up to. So there is a pot that's been put in our name. I say put in our name, put aside
Yeah.
with our name on it.
well, I mean,
So that may be how they intended it to work. I'm sure there was a concern that there not be any double dipping.
Yeah.
And they
That's
want to
what it
make
was
that
really
very,
about.
very
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because I read it over and over and I
So-
kept thinking, it's a little vague,
Yeah.
but, you know, I mean, they've got to cover it too, because they're liable for those funds. But my thing is, I would hate, and I totally understand, but I would hate to reject it and something happen and we go, lost 40 grand.
Yeah.
that's a fair concern. I mean, I think you brought up some really good points, Martha.
Oh, yeah.
but, I mean, you know, frankly, I had not gone as deep as you have, but I mean, if you think it's something worth keeping, then, I mean, I'll bring my motion back up again to approve it.
Do I have a second?
I think I would want more, I mean, I agree. I think it's good to have, but just to have a calculation for how much staff time, how much, you know, how many attorney hours and, you know, any kind of accounting that we have to do, what that will cost, and just make sure that, you know, we're always coming out ahead with anything that
Oh,
we
I
can
mean,
apply, so.
You got Judy sitting there.
Oh.
She's not going to allow, she's not going to allow me to come up with, go here, and she's going to go, well, it's going to cost so much for the audit, so it's not worth it. Well, then we'll
Yeah.
back
That's a
off.
fact.
Right.
That's a
And not
fact.
that you would, but. I'm just
No, no,
saying,
no. I
you know.
mean, she's, you know, she would pop me on the hand very quick. And I let her too, by the
This
way.
is true.
But
I'd like to hear those answers from the county attorney through Beth. That's just my opinion.
I mean, we can try to delay. I mean, I don't see the deadline. There's not a deadline for us to approve it, but
I'm sure we just have to have the agreement approved and accepted before we submit any requests.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what are we instructing staff to find out that we need? What do you want to know
Well.
that we don't have right now?
I wanted to know if that FEMA restriction was part of the CARES Act. on the federal level, or did the state add it, or just Guilford County? Because we have heard Randolph County doesn't have it, that restriction in their contracts with their municipalities. I wonder about this penalty and interest. How's that calculated? It talks about when an audit is done by Attorney General, which could be done a couple of years later. What's the penalty and interest? That interest compound every day for 2 years?
So let me ask this question, because she brings up a really good point. If, let's say let's say you had the option sitting on your desk, you've got it there, you need to use it. If you were going to use it, would this be something we would know about that you were looking at moving forward with? Or would this be something that you would just act on directly? And by that, I mean simply that if our concerns are penalties and such, would that be something that would be brought back before council?
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm not going to.
Again, don't misunderstand. I'm not
No,
challenging. I'm just
I
asking.
totally
I
understand
don't
what
know.
you're saying, but no, I'm not going to sit here and go, okay, y'all approved it, now I'm going to use part of it, I'm going to execute it. I'm going to come back and go, here's our expenses, our finance officer is calculated to be this much, here's what the audit's going to be, here's what our chances are, we've talked to Guilford County, okay, we're going to go ahead and apply for it.
Okay, so if that was a concern, then we would be able to circumvent that or at least address it at a later time, but we'd have the option open to us at that point.
I would feel comfortable going ahead with the agreement, but then with the stipulation that nothing be applied for before.
Yeah, sure.
Before our questions are answered.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think we should necessarily take it
Absolutely.
to
No,
another
yeah.
meeting. Or if there are no answers that would make you feel good about it enough to pass it, you can go ahead and take care of that today too.
Yeah,
I totally respect that. I mean, I'm not going to, we would definitely come back to council and go, okay, here's what we've got, Because see, right now, we would try to wait till, later to make sure
Oh, yeah,
that we
but
get everything covered, that we don't have to work twice to apply through FEMA.
right.
And that is just about the biggest go-around I've ever gone through. But it is available, and I'm not knocking FEMA at all, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
But once
it
we
is.
enter to the agreement and sign the contract, get it over to the county, they don't have to answer any of Beth's questions at that point. We've already signed the agreement.
Well, I mean, the thing is just, we have to know the questions before we,
But we're
Sit in there
approving
and we-
tonight to do it, and that's the green light to go, and the answers have not been given
well, we wouldn't actually, and I said what you mean, but we wouldn't apply for any reimbursement unless we knew the answers.
And if there were any
yet. But I think
questions
the
relative,
basis of the vote would be on the answers that we would have before us, not putting the cart before the horse.
Would you be more comfortable continuing this until October
Yeah,
when we
I've
have
already
answers
said
to our
that.
questions?
Yeah, I've already said that, so.
Do we have additional questions other than the verbiage in the CARES Act that we'd like to have
The
addressed?
CARES Act, and maybe some clarification on the penalty and the interest.
Any question?
Those are the ones.
Those are the ones I got.
that-
Okay.
And if you had
And
additional,
there's
She had three different concerns, or two or three different concerns
Okay.
that she reached out to, that you had reached out to other members and hadn't got a response back, and how you rattled them off. I didn't write them down, but they were good ones, and I was like, well, that's exactly the kind of information I want.
I can ask about the penalties and interest. I have had a little bit of experience with a situation where federal money was used and an audit subsequently revealed that it wasn't applied pursuant to the government regulations. There wasn't anything wrong with the application. It just wasn't, they didn't dot their i's and cross their t's. And there is interest and penalties involved when that happens. With this agreement, Guilford County is making it very clear that any penalties and interest that might have to do with anything we got, then we have to bear, and they don't. And okay, I get that. If we got money that we were not entitled to, then okay, clearly, if the government assesses a penalty, we got to pay it. I don't think anybody would argue that. But I will say this, Guilford County is the arbiter of who gets these funds and whether or not they are appropriate to be paid for out of this money. And this agreement also says that Guilford County, we can't hold Guilford County responsible for any advice that Guilford County gives us about what is an appropriate reimbursement and what isn't.
Right.
So it's like, okay, if you screw up, you have to pay. If we screw up, you have to pay. And that, again, may just have to be the way it is. I don't know that it would be worthwhile for the town to hire a FEMA CARES Act expert to tiptoe through the regulations to make sure that we are absolutely on point. I mean, I think we want to be right. I'm not saying we're not trying.
Yeah.
But you can beat it to death.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's just something, again, I can't imagine us applying for anything that's not directly related to COVID. We're not going to push that envelope.
Of course not.
Any other questions to be addressed? Okay. Thank you, Kenny. We'll see this again in October. Matthew, would you like to present the demolition order?
He made a motion. Do we have to deal with that?
I guess it dies for lack of.
Died for lack of a
second.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The next item on the agenda is a consideration of approval of an order of demolition for property located at 301 Lee Street. The town has made multiple attempts to remedy the public nuisance located at 301 Lee Street. This includes having granted the owner a permit to fix up the structures, and that permit expired in February 2020. The overall condition of the structures continued to deteriorate during this time. On May the 14th, 2020, the town attorney and myself hosted a teleconference with the owner of the property. At that time, the town informed the owner that we had found the dwelling and the accessory structure structurally unsafe and especially dangerous to life because of its liability to fire or because of the bad condition of the walls, defective construction, decay, and etc. And that demolition of the structures would be necessary to alleviate the danger to the public safety per General Statute 160A 426. The building was posted and notice was sent to the owner of the town's decision. The owner was notified in writing on May 27th of this year, and it was explained that he had the right to appeal under General Statute 160A 429, which he did not act upon. Upon failure of the owner to appeal, the town may elect to demolish and remove the offending structures per 160A 432B. The town attorney has crafted an order of demolition, which will be recorded with the Register of Deeds if it is passed by this council this evening. A copy will be mailed to the owner. Once those actions have been completed, the town will contract with a demolition contractor to demolish and remove the debris, and a lien for all costs, including legal fees, will be recorded with the clerk of Superior Court following the demolition. There is a little bit of late breaking information that Mr. Young has hired an attorney, and I'm going to let Beth speak to that.
I have been contacted by an attorney who is supposedly representing Mr. Young. I have sent him the information in our inspection report and what information the town has about this structure. I'm anticipating that he will get back in touch with me depending on your vote tonight. He did float the idea with me about giving Mr. Young some additional time to take care of this problem. I told him that we had already we're between 18 months and 2 years down the road with this property and have not had any movement so far, and that I certainly could not speak for the council, but I was not sure that there would be much of an appetite for giving any additional time. And of course, Mr. Young isn't here tonight, and he is not represented by council, so I'm assuming that such a request is not before you tonight. The only thing before you is this order of demolition. So my suggestion would be to proceed accordingly, yay or nay. And then if we'll send that order out in the event that you approve it, we'll get it sent to him tomorrow. And then he can do what he will.
Well, I have a question. in looking, of course, we have the estimate on what it would cost to demolish the property. Well, and that would go as a lien onto the property. I've looked up the tax value of the property. The land itself is $20,000 is the tax value. Of course, market value is different from your tax value, but just looking at the land. And if this is put as a lien on the property, is the only way we can recoup that is when the property is sold.
Beth?
Actually, we would have the option to consider foreclosure of our lien. Remember the burned house
Yeah.
in,
Weddington Hall.
yeah, got the name of the subdivision. That's the remedy that we chose there. Now, we
Yeah.
ended up not having to go through with it because there was a sale prior to, but I mean, once we started the process, they
Okay.
came in and paid it.
Okay.
I don't know what would happen with this, but we would definitely have a lien on property for the cost that we've expended.
Mhm.
And then we have the opportunity to sit, that lien is good for 10 years.
Mhm.
And, wait to see if the property's sold. Or we would have the option to move forward with foreclosure of that lien to satisfy our demolition charges.
So the owner could pay us back
Yes,
directly,
yes,
if he doesn't want to sell the property.
correct.
Okay, that's why I was trying to find how we could recoup that without, because he may not want to sell that property. So how would we have to wait until such time? So there are ways to,
Right.
Recoup.
Bottom line is, no, we don't have to wait. We can push the envelope. I will say, one thing I would want to check, and I don't really think this necessarily factors into your decision tonight to whether to move forward with an order of demolition. But there is an old deed of trust on this property.
Oh.
And it's past its due date, but it's still a lien.
Huh.
It's not past the statute of limitations for enforcement. We have sent the lien holder notice. We have not heard back of the proceeding. We have not heard anything from him. So
is that an individual or a bank?
it is an individual.
Uh-huh.
And so consequently, before we move forward with actually foreclosing this property, I would want to be able to certify to the council where we were in the pecking order as far as paying liens. But again, that's where it stands, and I think your decision tonight is whether to pass this order of demolition.
So that means that there's a possibility at least that we could actually go through the demolition of the property and be left holding the bill because we don't know about that.
There's a chance, I think that this lien is going to have the same priority as taxes because it was on this property. I want to make absolutely sure that that's the case, but that's what I think.
Do you know the amount of the lien?
I can tell you the amount of the original deed of trust.
Okay.
I'm just concerned about, I think there's no doubt that it needs to be demolished. And I think there's no doubt that the town has given them ample time to do such. But I want to make sure there's a clear path of how we will get our money back, we being the town.
Mhm.
I agree.
How much of this, at this point, is a liability for us too, though? I mean, if, like we've spoken about with Oakdale before, since
Yeah.
we're well aware of it.
Yeah.
Since, if we're in the process, is that if somebody goes and gets hurt on that property because of the condition of it, can they then sue us?
That's a
Or
very
if we're
good
in the middle
point.
of it, is it like, well, they're working towards it, so
Well,
they're trying to do the right thing.
He's
That's a
got
very
no
good point.
trespassing signs on it, so the liability will be on the person going on the property, I would think.
Well,
Because there's no
it
trespassing
is,
signs.
it is, but then I think
There's
there's
no
a
fence,
question
they
that
haven't-
Yeah, we know about it, yeah.
Yeah.
I am not overly concerned about that.
Okay.
I will say that lien that you asked about, Martha, the deed of trust is $25,000. It was put on in 2014. So it may, the due date was March of 2017. It may or may not be due. It's just uncanceled at this point
Are there, are there
and
any,
not past the statute of limitations for enforcement.
are there any taxes due on the property?
I think they're paid.
I think they're paid. But I'll look
Yes,
up.
they're paid through
Yeah.
2019. Probably 2020 taxes are still due.
Yeah.
With that deed of trust, is it listing the structures? And if it is, are we still clear with going ahead and demolishing those structures?
We have to give appropriate notice, but as long as we're giving the notice required by statute, we can take it down.
Okay. Is there any reason to believe that there is any underground tanks or anything that is in that exclusionary section with Griffin's proposal? Matt,
I'm not aware of any.
there's a tank laying out behind it, but has anybody looked to see if there's any fuel in it? Those are going to be additional fees beyond the 13.3.
Right, we have not done any testing of any tank materials or anything. I don't know of any underground tanks.
Nobody been out in the garage and looked in any of that?
We have not been able to gain access into the interior of the structures, correct?
Well, the town would be doing is taking down that structure.
Correct.
We wouldn't be looking for something underground.
Well, but they're doing the grading and they're taking out footings and those sort of things. And if there's something under the ground, they're going to grab it.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
I would think they would just take the structure down and haul off the.
Well, they've talked about the footings and the foundations. The footings is in the ground, so they're going to have to pull something out there to pull it out.
Yeah.
My thinking is if they run into an underground tank,
Mhm.
they're probably going to stop right there
Yeah.
and tell us to deal with it.
And we've already
Otherwise-
cut water and sewer and capped it and all that's done, right?
No, so I know electricity is still on at the structure. I don't know what their currency is on water and sewer, but we would have to remove all of those utilities and make sure that they were cut off. That's what we did with Pierce when we went through that process.
A guesstimate on that kind of a cost or is that just labor?
In the past, when we just presented them with an order of demolition and said, we have an order to demolish this, will you cut it off? They cut it off. And they did it in a way that would be safe for the contractor to remove. They do deal with that.
Right.
DH Griffin was the one we got the
Right.
quote from. They deal with that all the time, so.
Well, I say we move forward.
Is that a motion?
Yes, motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Matthew. And now we're looking at the adoption of the certificate of sufficiency.
Correct. The next item on the agenda is a consideration of a certificate, adoption of a certificate of sufficiency. The town received a petition for annexation of property commonly known as the Johnson Farm. The petition included parcel 159144, which is 2221 Guilford College Road, parcel 159105, which is 5300 Mackey Road, parcel 159106, which is 2207 Guilford College Road, and parcel 158765, which is 5303 Mackey Road, and finally parcel 65604, which is 5230 Mackey Road. The council requested that the staff, and in this case, the clerk, investigate the petition and adopt a resolution you adopted a resolution at the August regular council meeting. The clerk, the planning director, myself, and the town attorney have investigated the petition and present to you a certificate of sufficiency this evening. The certificate involves a review of title. A thorough title search has been completed by the applicant's attorney, and that information was provided to the town attorney. A review of the signatures on the petition by the town, and the town attorney is satisfied that the owners of record have signed the petition. There is one correction, however. Parcel number 65604, which is 5230 Mackey Road, was previously annexed into the city of Greensboro in 1988 and thus will not be considered for annexation at this time. I have heard from the developer's attorney. They will seek de-annexation from Greensboro and annexation into Jamestown via the General Assembly. The tract will not be considered for rezoning at this time either. Thus, the next step is to adopt the certificate of sufficiency and set a public hearing date, which I believe is the next item on our agenda this evening. Are there any questions?
Questions, council?
In looking over the annexation petitions, I don't like that there are two errors in the names under print or type name and address here. Under section 1, Edward A. Johnson is missing an S from Johnson, so it's just John. And then near the bottom, the William P. Johnson Third Family Limited Partnership, the O is capitalized in Johnson, the first one. I've learned, I guess through Katie, that Beth has said that this, shouldn't negate anything. But honestly, I think we deserve something that's not sloppy. I would prefer if they made this right and had them re-signed and resubmitted as the first official document that they are coming to the town with to ask to annex. There shouldn't be careless errors in it.
Who typed in the names? Do we know who filled out that part?
It came from the applicant. I couldn't
So
tell
we
you who
don't know
typed
if
it
they
in.
did, if their attorney did it.
I could not tell you.
I got you. Well, it should be correct. And I don't think that would be hard for them to do. Because it's just going to be those two names. They should have that typed correctly. I don't think it would hold anything up. You could still go ahead and set your public hearing date and accept your certificate of sufficiency, but ask that they just have that signature page corrected.
Any other questions? or-
I would like to say for the record that it is a different Matthew Johnson that's on the paperwork for the one that's speaking tonight, just for the sake of getting that out there one more time.
We're very aware of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can we have a motion with those errors being corrected? Is that acceptable?
Would we want to have by a particular date, or, I wouldn't want to get to the public hearing and then, if we haven't, gotten that yet, I wouldn't want to go forward at that point, but.
So
By-
before the public hearing then?
Well,
That's.
your
step
next
one
council
side.
meeting. By your next council meeting.
Yeah, I think that.
By the October regular meeting date.
And I'm assuming, nobody lives in China or somewhere that'd be hard to get them.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Yeah. So, I would make a motion to approve the certificate of sufficiency with the signature page to be corrected by the October, let me
I think
see.
it's the 20th.
Second.
But what's the October meeting date?
I think it's the 20th, but he's checking.
It's the 19th, is that right?
It's either the 19th or the 20th.
20th? Maybe it's right. My apologies. No, it's close.
Did you say 19th or 20th? I don't have my calculator.
I don't have my calendar on me, sorry.
It's the 20th.
The 20th, very good.
Okay, by the October 20th council meeting.
Thank you very much.
Do you have a second?
I already did.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Matthew, and now we'd like to set a public hearing date.
Right, so the final item is a consideration of a resolution fixing the date of public hearing on the question of annexation pursuant to General Statute 16831. As we just discussed, it is time to set the public hearing date. Due to ongoing requests for rezoning and the desire to hear those issues concurrently with the town council, we respectfully request that the initial public hearing date be calendared for the January 19th, 2021 regular council meeting to allow time for the rezoning request to be considered by a planning board. Notice of the hearing is going to be published in the Jamestown News at least 10 days prior to the date of the hearing. And if additional time is needed, the council could elect to continue that public hearing without any further advertisement at the January meeting. Any questions?
You need a motion on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay,
And moving on to new business, John Crow is going to give us a report on the golf course.
Bore y'all today.
No, we look
Really
forward to
fun,
this.
Exciting, it's about grass.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I've got, a line, an outline here of what, I want to talk about. And, the one dealing with the work during the coronavirus, which I, want to thank everybody for making that decision to close down for 6 weeks. I thought that was a very wise decision. It gave me the ability to do some things with the golf course that we just weren't able to ever, do. And that's, we aerified the greens, and we aerified the fairways, we verticut the fairways, aerified tee boxes. It was kind of crazy because for such an abnormal year, we had a really normal weather pattern this year. A nice full spring, summer was about right, and then it's August 15th, here comes fall. And it's like we just felt the cool weather. So during this time, a lot of our complaints last year and prior years with the greens and the golf course, our greens were too hard, too firm. And so I felt like this extra aerification that we did during the spring kind of helped us loosen them up, soften them up. And so when we opened back up 6 weeks later, never got any of those complaints this year. And so far, we still haven't got those complaints of the greens being too firm or too fast. Along with that, talking to Ross a little bit before I wanted to come speak, notice our rounds are up. He said roughly around 25% since opening up, which I can believe it because, it's just packed out there, and the guys are just coming out to play, and there's a lot of new faces that, I haven't seen, and it's good. It's just good to see. Good, I think a lot of this coronavirus and stuff has kind of brought some people out to play golf that have never played golf before. So there were some cool things we got to see this year with this early, spring. We had an active honeybee nest right 25 yards away from a green, number 15. It was really neat. We accidentally found it, but we had hit it with a mower, and it was in a tree. Next thing you know, these bees just come out swarming. So, which I think is kind of cool. It's a real testament to the research and the chemistries that we use to make not only the chemicals that we spray out there safe for the applicator, but also for the consumer. This is a very sensitive, ecosystem to have a honeybee's nest at 25 yards away from a green, and which is our most highly maintained piece of turf out there. And we're on them all the time. It's, 3 acres that we just constantly are looking at. And I just think that's a really cool thing to see. You just don't see that kind of stuff every day. And it makes me feel good about what I'm actually doing out there, because I want to make sure everything that I spray is safe for the consumer and people that come into Jamestown Park. Secondly, I was talking about the nematodes. For those of you, I don't know if I mentioned it last time that we talked, I was considering doing an essay on nematodes, and these are microscopic animals that live in the soil. You have beneficial nematodes and you have parasitic or harmful nematodes. And just can see, kind of observing our greens, that there are some greens that have not a problem, just great. And some just kept having these problems and just didn't seem to respond to our fertilizers, our micronutrients. It just didn't seem to work. We couldn't figure it out. And then last year, we got this disease. It's called take-all root rot. And so we scrambled after we saw this, and we were like, what is going on? It didn't seem to make sense because we had our fungicide program was, basically, on schedule, but we just couldn't figure out what was going on. So it made me think the nematodes were an issue. So we did an essay, and we found out we have a count of lance, sting nematodes, and root knot nematodes. And those are three of the most harmful nematodes you can have as far as turfgrass is concerned. So we started to treat those things. And we really noticed a response. These greens that we normally have trouble with, keeping stress off of them, we noticed it's improved. It's gotten better. So this is a practice that we're going to continue to have to use or have to spray for. And the more research is coming out, because it's just, I was talking about the chemistries. There used to be this stuff called Nemacure, and it was skull and crossbone stuff. I mean, just nasty, nasty stuff. And in fact, I came in contact with it in my last golf course. I had a bag of it sitting in the chemical room. So, I'd walk in and hold my breath as I was trying to grab stuff because I just didn't want to mess with it. And, but now they've outlawed that on golf courses. You better not have it on you. And, but it worked so well, we never had this problem. It seemed like that was more of an Eastern North Carolina thing or more of a South Carolina. Just didn't see it in this area. But I think with the new grasses that have come up, you transport these nematodes into your soil. And, that's one way. I think a lot of the sand also carries it too. So anyhow, that was just, that's one of those things that we noticed this year, that we had a better success on some of these grains, and to get a uniform and, color, response, health of the greens all together.
So that's something you have to treat every year. I mean, you can't treat them and they're gone.
Right.
They're going to come back.
Your populations, so I did an essay early in April. Your populations kind of are really high then, and then they kind of tail off in the summer. One actually will go up. I think the one they say you can outgrow, I just don't believe that. But they seem to kind of sink down in the summer, go deeper in the soil. And then in the fall, when the soil temps kind of get the same, they come back up. So, right in those areas, I think you're having the best root development, and these things just feed off roots. They're in crops also. So I think some farmers have dealt with nematodes for a long period of time too. It's just, they seem to feed off these things, and I guess everybody has their home lawn. You've got a spot in your home lawn that just doesn't seem to want to grow. I mean, it could be shade, it could be a lot of different things, but some things that are like out in the wide open, you're just looking like, this doesn't make sense. And a lot of it is the telltale sign of a weed that'll infest this area. Is called spotted spurt. And we've got it on the front of 6, and it's in some bunkers. And I kept noticing, I was like, geez, I've got a resort of nematodes here, because it's right there, right along my green. It always was off color, always real. I mean, we'd have to resod it every year. So, this year it looks great. Everything's doing better. That green is probably the one I have the highest count on. Number 9 and then number 17 were my 3 that I took from, because I just kind of felt like the populations were high.
So what are you're calling them nematodes?
Nematodes.
How big a fellow is this thing?
I can't see it with the
The
naked eye.
microscope.
You dropped them off over at my house, didn't you? Yeah. Okay. I understand that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right.
But yeah, these things, it's just funny because being in the business this long, like things that were sprayed 20 years ago, some of you just don't find it, and we wonder what's the result. Like as chemistries were old, they were good, but they were harmful.
Yeah.
And now with the research from State, Clemson, Virginia Tech, Auburn, Georgia, you got a lot of these universities, and they just keep doing research and product development. And they make it safer for everybody, and that's a true testament to those universities that are involved in this kind of study, because I just thinking about all the things that I've heard about people spraying. I wouldn't want to deal with that, now in today's world, and just because of bringing it home to the family, and it's just kind of, it's not a nice thing to think about, but really does. We have these problems show up now that we didn't have 20 years ago, and I think that's what we're kind of finding. Like, well, gosh, this thing worked for something else, and so the study, the research is like, yeah, you know what? And they were spraying this stuff. It was killing everything in the soil, whether beneficial or harmful. So it makes me feel a little better about what I'm doing. So I feel a little safer about what I'm doing. So that's just one thing I want you to know, that we got a handle on this. The disease issue, we didn't see it this year, but it's just it's the way things go. You didn't see that one, but then we just found another one just a couple days ago, and it just we're just kind of like, how in the world? But it's always something new. We always with this job, it's never just repetition. It seems like there's always something new that pops up, and which makes it interesting and fun. I'm going on to the fall prep for winter. We've already done a pre-emergent. So guys are keeping your yards up to September 15th. You start seeing temperatures drop down. You want to either seed or you want to, overseed your yard. You've got fescue. This is North Carolina, so we don't have a perfect grass in this state. So you get your summer grasses and you got your winter grasses. So time to get everything out right now is your cool season grasses, your fescue or your ryegrass. But you also want to get your pre-emergent out, and that's what we've done to the golf course. We pre-emerge everything. We also have an application coming up on our greens called it's a spring dead spot. It's a certain pathogen on Bermuda grass that you'll see coming out in the spring. You'll see it in our fairways. There's these dead spots everywhere. And so with Bermuda grass greens, we now make this application on the greens itself to keep it from happening to our greens, our most valuable thing on the golf course. And so it's just kind of one of those expensive applications. You spend the money on it, and you just never know. You just don't know if it works. You don't. That's the kind of hard thing about it, because you go, well, God, I'm spraying this thing. But, do I even know it works? But knowing that the one time I don't treat it or I miss that window, we might see the damage from it. So that's some of the prep we've done. And as far as raising our heights up in our fairways, tee boxes, our greens will start to slowly creep those heights up to deal with the stress of the winter coming up, foot traffic. We normally cut our fairways at a 3/4 of an inch. Now we're going to an inch. And the reason why we've done that is because a couple of years ago, we had that huge winter kill where it got so cold, long duration of some dry weather, and it zapped about, maybe 4 or 5 acres of grass. So, we've noticed that now we come up on heights a little bit more so on our fairways. You see less damage, but I think we still see some, we'll have some in the rough that we've always had problems with out there due to shade issues. But those are some of the things that we're doing, that right now that prepare for the winter time.
Do you have a lot of trees you're gonna have to take down this winter, or?
I've got a bunch of dead ones. I've actually I had E.B. Adams come out and take a look at 4 of them that we had just they're close to, one of them's close to one of our bathrooms out there. And it's a huge oak, and I just want to get rid of that one. Then we have an ash tree hanging off of number 15 tee box. And I've noticed the limbs are starting to fall. We looked at it. I asked him if it was worth saving. You can still have some of it's green, but the limbs are directly over the cart path right below. Right where people park the carts. So I think that's a big time hazard. So we're going to go ahead and get that one out of there. And then I have two others on number 3 tee box that, just the way it's located, I just wouldn't feel safe cutting it down. So, I got a quote from him to get some of that, but there's some other ones that we can take care of, kind of out of the way. None that I would say cutting down anything on the golf course, that would help our greens any more than we've already done. Like,
Right.
you know, we had to get some sunlight to some greens, and those have made a big difference. So, and then, you know, the last thing I got here is our irrigation leaks. You know, and this is, you know, I'm going to pat my assistant on the back. He fixed 64 leaks last year,
Really?
which is insane.
Awesome, yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. I can say I've gone through 20 years of being a golf course superintendent and assistant. I don't think I've done 64 leaks. So he really worked hard on getting this, you know, these done. And then we're at the mid-30s this year. It's a consistent problem, where all the glued pipe is starting to, I don't know, deteriorate or. So I think we're at less this year than we've had in the previous years. And I don't know if we're just running out of leaks. I'm hoping, but I mean, I doubt that's a problem. But, you know, we really, you know, try to stay on top of that because, you know, that's just wear and tear on pumps. Because the pumps keep coming on and off, trying to keep the pressure up in our system. So, you know, we've noticed some more that are popping up, and you know, we just have to get to them when we can. But you know, really, that's almost 100 leaks, you know, in the past 2 years. So, I don't know. We're hoping they're slowing down.
Yeah.
We should about have all the fittings replaced by now.
You would think. I forgot. I did it a couple of years ago. I figured out there's 11 miles of pipe in the ground. There's 11 miles, I think. So, and it's every 20-foot section. There was a possible leak on the 2-inch line. The main lines are fine. They're gasketed when they were put in, but the 2-inch lines were all glued. And you know, we kind of went through this where we dig them up, and whoever put them together just didn't do them right. They weren't properly put together. But anyway.
What PSI are those pipes at?
Well, they're operating at 130 right now. We did do something like I tried to lower the PSI to see if that would help. If I could just get coverage on the greens, right? And the problem is still there. It still have, you know, the constant shifting on and off, even valving things off. Just causes a problem. So, but I'm trying to be positive. I think we've kind of reduced it a little. We've tried different things as far as when we fix it, you know, making sure that we really get everything, you know, the water out of the air out of the lines, when we shut this back on, getting really, you know, turning it on slower than it's been done in the past. So,
how many pumps you say you got on 2?
So right now we have a total of 4 pumps. We have 3 main pumps, and then we have a primer pump. I've had to shut one pump down because it has a bad bearing in it right now. And then until we redo that bearing, I would just cause more damage to that pump. So
Those are all electric.
Yeah, these 2 pumps, they have 2 pumps operating right now. They're able to run everything. Because our primer pump that kicks on, that's the main one that kicks on to keep the pressure up. And then your main one, you start throwing, you know, a lot of volume of water out there, they start turning on. And luckily this year it's rained so much we've hardly had to use it. So there's a positive to that it rained so much it kept the grass just growing beautiful and great. But also in that same sense, it broke down a lot of my pre-emergence I put out in the spring, and so we've had some weed breakthroughs. But yeah, that's just to be expected. But Other than that, any questions? Try to keep it interesting, didn't put anybody to sleep. Good
Well,
to-
it looks like a lot of people are playing when I come by, if the weather's good. It was really packed last Saturday, it was a Sunday, and one day, parking lot was full and people were just little carts going everywhere.
It's crazy, and I'm very proud. I'm just proud of what we've been able to accomplish in the guys, and we're trying to get them to, be on board and have everything, our vision there to keep these people coming in through the door, because it really, I think we came second in Guilford County to Sedgefield, so that's a good sign, we're like, all right.
Now, what did you say?
We were second best place to play
Oh.
behind Sedgefield. I mean, that's a PGA golf course.
Yeah, well, awesome. That's
So-
great.
So that's great, that's great news. And, it's just seeing the guys that are out there playing. I've got a lot of feedback. I actually got to play golf this weekend, and that's very rare that I get a chance to do that. And I had some fellows down at High Point that were like, yeah, you're at Jamestown? And I got to meet them, and I said, yeah. And they're like, man, played over there, great shape. This is awesome. Made me feel really
makes you
good
feel
about it.
really
It did. I said, that's all worth it right there.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well,
You
great.
get a lot of accolades from the folks that I talk to over here in Forestdale East. The golfers are just like, man, the place has never looked as good as it has, or as it's looking right now
Right.
to play. And the ones that, were griping about that it's too fast, well, you're just not chipping good. You're not doing
That's how the standards of golf have gone so high. It's like we were 1988 U.S. Open. I forgot where it was, but the greens were stemping 8, and a stemp is like you take 3 golf balls and you have this little thing and you lean it up and it rolls out, a certain distance, and you take the average, and then if it's 10 feet, so it's rolling at 10. Well, the U.S. Open then in 1988 was like rolling at 8, and that to us is right now is like shag carpet. And we're like, we're trying to get it at 10.5 on a consistent basis, and I think we've been able to do that. It's very rare that we're slower than that, and we try not to get it so fast where people don't have fun, because they can get away from you, and people just 4-putt, 5-putt. So that's the hard thing about keeping everybody happy.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to do.
I just have one last question. Did you relocate the hive, or are the bees still out there?
So I believe
I'm worried about the bees.
the honeybees. So we had a couple of honeybee guys that were around, and we asked them what was going on to see if they would take the queen. And the one guy actually both of them said that what's going to happen is they're going to make a new queen, and she was going to leave, but the old queen stay around. So we saw a honeycomb start to form on the outside of this knot, and we saw them just it was neat because they formed like a beard, and I wanted to have pictures, but I'll try to get those next time. But it was like a huge honeybee beard, and then they started forming like the honeycomb on the outside. Well, then the other queen left, and then they went back into the tree. So we're hoping that still be there. I mean, I hope the tree doesn't fall down, but.
Any idea where their food source is? Because you don't have a lot of flowering stuff out there, do you?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I've never seen it before. And it's
But they're not those killer bees, those,
No.
murder hornets.
yeah.
No.
Or the others, they were supposed to be the ones that were taking over all the hives before the murder hornet showed up.
Oh, no,
They're regular honeybees.
okay, yeah, it's really.
Just wait, they'll show up.
Thank you, John.
Leslie, you may not know about this because it's not golf, but I've been seeing up at the soccer fields, the signs, soccer shots, and it looks like they're having some kind of soccer up there. Do you know anything about it? I've seen the
No,
little signs that says sign up for soccer shots.
Yes,
I don't know.
there is a small program going. We're getting some interest now in the soccer field, so.
That's why I just was wondering if the town was getting some
Great,
revenue off of
yeah,
that.
we are, and it's a great organization, and I think it's going well.
Especially since, JYL
Yeah.
has sort of dropped off. I thought maybe we've got another
Yeah.
group interested. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on
Thank you
Freedom.
very much.
Yeah.
Kenny, do you have a manager's report for us?
I do, I guess the biggest thing is nothing's changed since I sent it out Friday. I don't know if y'all noticed, but we did have Eastport dropped out of the list.
Yeah.
Yes, Main Street,
Yeah.
Revite sign is dropped out, and pretty soon we'll have Lee Street dropped out. And the HR office, they started on that this week, actually. If you get a chance, go by there because they went in to remove the molding, and that is actually plaster molding.
Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
I've never seen that. Hmm?
That made a mess.
They cut it. I've just never seen that before. They thought it was actually wood molding, but it was actually plaster.
I've had to do that. It isn't no fun. You cut the mold and you just keep scraping.
Yeah.
Till you finally get to that.
So I didn't know about that.
Are they gonna, as far as the ceiling and stuff, I noticed there were some cracks and stuff.
We're going to repair that too and go ahead and paint the front and that office together. So we're going to make it a little bit, while we're up there working, just go ahead and just do it all. So as much as we can to make it look presentable.
Cool.
The Civic Center Internet, we do have a better connection over here. We're getting a price from VC3 to upgrade the speeds there. So I need to check with Sharon on that to make sure, but that'll go out in your Friday. You'll see your Friday report. And the leaf collection, Paul,
October 26th.
26. Starts October 26.
Right.
Hard to believe.
Yeah.
Well, we're in the 17th month of 2020. So.
Yeah. But that's it.
Did you say you've already done the internet connection? Because planning board sounded good last night. Right there. Yep. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
I had asked you this, but I don't know if the other council had asked about the drop-off box. You said it was here, but you haven't got it.
It is here,
Installed
but we have a spot. Is it located yet, Paul?
Yes, we have a stake in the ground on the island in front of the fire station.
So if you'll go out when you leave to make sure if y'all think that's a good location. It was like when we start going out there, we thought we had our mind made up, and then we went out there and drove around and thought, well, we can't make this turn, so
What would be
we kept moving it, and we thought, well, we'll just put it here, and it's worked out fine so far. But go by and take a look, and that's hopefully it's going to be visible enough that people will use it and take advantage of it. So
Will early voting cause us any issues?
yes, early voting starts October 15th. So we'll actually have to move our next meeting, October meeting, back over to the council chambers. We need to make sure that we can get the social distancing, but I think we can do it. So.
Well, we talked last month about Oakdale Cotton Mill, about actually writing a letter and actually going at each parcel of land and saying, this is what needs to be done, instead of just a blanket, you need to board up, you need to mow, actually have each address and what needs to be done at each place and a deadline.
Yeah, but I just sent another email out to them and noticed that spoke with Lawrence, and there were still a lot out there. So I went out there and looked at it, and grass needs to be mowed again. And they responded back within a couple of hours and said that their property management company would take care of it.
I think
But
they're getting on the mowing, but as far as the boarding
well, they shut the doors. They don't board them, and I understand that.
As of Sunday, there were at least 5 doors wide open.
Yeah.
And windows that's
and
been busted
windows,
out.
yeah.
Windows busted out, but
So
the doors, when I say board them up, they'll just go out there and close the
Yeah.
door, and I go,
That's
Start
what I
open
think.
again.
I think each piece of property needs to be listed and inventory taken and the items that we're wanting them to do.
Yeah. I took these pictures this morning, and I was just curious to see what things look like, to see how the progress had been. And the doors I get, I mean, they're open, they're closed, but I mean, my challenge to the property management company would be, okay, can we secure the doors?
Yeah.
You know, slap
Right.
some deadbolts on there or something like that.
That's what I'm after.
You know, I mean, that would make the most sense. The other thing is too, from a hazard standpoint, there's one house that has half a gutter hanging off. So if there are any kids playing around, that was just waiting to fall on somebody's head. I noticed on the backside, it was kind of, it kind of stood out to me. It's a lousy picture, but I was noticing now the window was totally busted out, but we have a brand new sign. You know, it did, you know, but we got that. Again, it's not something I'm looking at directly on us as much as I am the property management company. They've got
Yeah.
I think they need to take it up a notch or two, because one of the things, the biggest thing that stood out to me, if I can find it, was the first picture I looked at was like the main gate has stayed blown open, and based on the amount of ivy and everything else, it leads me to believe that it's been that way. I don't think it's been closed in some time, but they need to have a sense of urgency about this at this point. We've asked, we've talked. I know you've spent a lot of time on it, but I think we're at a point now where there needs to be a heightened sense of urgency about this, because it really is, it's still bad. I mean, there's some windows boarded up, there's some doors boarded up, but there was a lot of stuff that was just blown wide open.
Yeah.
And
You can go out tomorrow and find a door that's is fine, then go out the next day and it's open. So
Or the windows.
The window, yeah,
busted out.
so
Well, I mean,
I think
does that make sense to everyone to go and you go address by address, parcel by parcel, and list what? the
start
town
listing
is
each
going-
one, that way we have it on file that.
Instead
okay,
of
here's
just a
the problem.
blanket boarded up, make it better.
yeah, I mean, I agree. There should be definitely some more detail in it. The biggest piece that stands out to me at this point is just, you know, how can we help you in terms of this process? Is there anything else that we can do that will help augment the situation with getting the message to the property company? Because
Well, I think there's a miscommunication between the owner and the property management company. And if we were not in there every month checking, I think it would just go left undone. I think maybe, like Martha said, maybe writing an official letter to them and spelling the property out and so forth. And finally just saying board up all the windows, all the doors.
It'll take a little time
Busted.
to do that inventory.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be done, but it'll take a little time. You can't just ride through and.
We've discussed having a meeting with the property owner by Zoom, and that'll probably take place before.
That'd be neat.
Yeah.
Is that all you wanted on that subject? or-
just real quick, how soon do you think that the property owner will be able to discuss this with y'all as far as?
We have not made contact with him yet. Actually, the owner actually contacted me today, which was usually his secretary or whatever assistant. She always does, but he actually did today. So we're going to try to push that, like I said, probably before, hopefully around November, definitely before the end of the year, and try to get him on a Zoom meet and discuss some options with the property also.
Yeah.
At the same time, discussing the maintenance of it. Because those gates, I'll report it, they'll go out and fix it the next day. There was that time I told you one time that they were actually, I saw somebody hauling a motor out there.
Yeah.
So is there, I
Biggest thing
mean,
I've ever seen.
can we ask them to have some security out there or something? I mean,
He's not.
Okay.
We've discussed security, but you know, that goes back to the sheriff's department, you know. But I think they're hiring a property management company thinking they may be doing a whole lot more. I don't know.
Well,
I just think.
I mean, we've just had the same discussion for years.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it seems like they don't really care what the town thinks. So, you know, we need to figure out what is going to work. If this is something that we're concerned about, then I think we need to, you know, do it differently. So, you know, I would like an actual action plan, you know, whether that be from us, because I know that you all have worked really hard on that. And, you know, I can't imagine how frustrating that is to just
It is, like I
you know,
said,
bumping
go out
up
there
against
and-
the same wall over and over again. But, you know, we've moved forward on the house on Lee Street. And, you know, I think that we need to be consistent across the board and what we're doing in all areas of town, regardless of who the owner is. And, you know, I think that.
And there's
we-
probably some property some individual houses out there that need to be demolished.
Yeah.
And that may be what's on the list that Martha's talking about, that this one needs to go away.
You go out and take a picture, photo. I really
Because
think the
they are a
Zoom
hazard.
meet will do well. That'll show the owner that we're really concerned with this. Number one, how they're taking care of it, and also what are their plans for it.
Do you want any volunteers to sit in with you?
I'll take any volunteer.
John's got a lot of good footage.
As long as you're in different rooms, I'll take two of you right here.
I mean, I'm just saying, if it makes a difference.
I think the more of council we can get in there, it'd be great. I really do.
I just think it's time that the needle gets moved. I mean, we've talked about this a long time, and again, understand I'm talking to you, but I'm not saying it's on you solely. I want to help
I
if
hope
I
not.
can. I just look at the situation as far as when I was driving through this morning. I mean, there are piles of trash near one house that's being lived in. Don't know what the situation is. Don't know if the people are, what the story is.
Yeah.
And then there's another place that I'm like, it seems like, let's see how many car parts we have out front, and if we actually want to move forward with this property in some capacity, and it's going to represent some historic aspect. I mean, this is like the last functioning mill town combination that was still running in some capacity until the end of the aughts. And I just think it's a shame that we're not farther along with this. But I think the property company needs to hear something from the owner. So I'll make the time.
All right, Matt and I are working on this together, so we'll try to schedule
I'll be
this
quiet, I
meeting,
promise.
and I'll
I'll be
let you
good.
know.
I'll behave.
Just toss this out. You mentioned security. If they're serious about security, if they haven't already filed with the sheriff's office, there's a form they can file called a trespass letter. They have to do for each and every address out there, which gives law enforcement the right to go in and inspect, or if they see anybody on the property, to make an arrest or citation, that sort of thing. But it has to be signed by the owner for each individual parcel. And then once that's done, it's good for a year. And law enforcement can just be riding by. If they see somebody kicking the door or inside that piece of property, they can make the arrest or charge them citation, whatever.
Yeah, I had recommended to the owner to please contact the sheriff's department since he was the owner. Like I said, I went up there at the time they were hauling scrap metal out, and he didn't know anything about it. I went out and talked to the sheriff's department. They went straight over there. But the last conversation I had was, well, you need to contact the sheriff's department and tell them you want.
It's a simple
more
form.
service.
Matter of fact, I think you can even download it online.
Okay. I'll let
If
you
he
be aware
fills
of
that out, he'll have to go to the District 3 substation. They'll give it to patrol officers, and then it
Okay.
exists. So
Thank you.
I did want to say, I saw that the seal's been put on the sign on West Main Street. Looks great. Right, so I appreciate y'all getting that done. And do we have any court date or on 2216 Guilford College Road?
I think the next date that we're able to get is going to be sometime more than October.
Oh, okay.
This October.
This October, yes. Yeah, good question.
Okay.
I do have one other question relative to the sign out by Flowers Bakery. Are we looking to possibly light that sign?
Yes, we are.
I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. I just meant, is that the direction we're going in, or are we going to leave it as it is?
We don't have the service there yet, I know that. We also got to do the landscape, and then we'll wait till,
Okay, I was just curious.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Shame not to light it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Council, have we had any committees that have met that we need a report from? Martha, you usually have 2 or 3.
Well, let's see, yeah. Well, we haven't had a meeting, but maybe you have been aware in the news that the census has been under some controversy. But the last that I have read, the judge has said that the census should continue the count until the end of October, not stop in September. So I would just again urge people to please fill it out if you haven't, and tell everybody keep filling it out through the end of October anyway, because it really can affect the funds that we get here in our schools and our representation. So I did have on August the 25th, had a TAC meeting, and that is where we did, what am I looking for here? We did have the,
Need to get you a bigger table.
yeah, see, I thought I had all this, so, you know, great, didn't I? But I don't see it here now. Did do a resolution for Mike Mills, which, then, you know, the town, I think you saw that we are doing a resolution for him. Somewhere I've got something else for him I was going to show y'all, but I'll have to look further. Here it is. I also got a card for Mike, and I would like for all of the council and staff too to sign it, and then maybe we can include that in with the original resolution, because Mike really did do a whole lot for Jamestown over the years, so we can pass that around. And they did announce his replacement is a right archer, and he comes from Division number 9. And he was on the Zoom meeting there and seems like a nice fella. He's been with the DOT for a long time and seemed very excited to come to our district. They did show on our list of projects under construction, the East Main Street Lydia sidewalk. Paul, I'll let you know, they're showing a completion date of November 2020. So if that's not correct, we might want to get with Donnie, I guess let Donnie know and update that date. The Land Comp Steering Committee did have a meeting on August the 31st, and the consultant gave us the feedback on some of the listening sessions and public engagement conversations they had. And I believe everybody got a copy of that. I wanted you to have that sort of what they got from all the different conversations they've had. And they've also have come up with some more public engagement things, and we're having the walking tours of downtown, and that's on Saturday, October the 3rd, 10, 1:30, 3:30, Tuesday, October 6th, 10 and 1:30. And I'm not sure, Matt, but did you say they're already filled up?
Tuesday is.
They're close.
They're close, so that's been very popular, people wanting to do that.
If I remember correctly, they have a number of spaces left on Saturday.
Okay. Okay. Well, I thought it was a marvelous idea, and I think others do too. And they also are doing some type of roundtable discussion, I think, with JBA or businesses. I guess that will be done online somehow in September. And if I get any of those comments, you know, summaries, I'll certainly give them to everybody so you'll know what's going on. And I guess that's all that I had.
Thank you.
All smiles here. We haven't done anything.
No meetings to report. Lawrence?
Same here, nothing going on.
Rebecca, you have lots.
Planning board's been meeting every 2 weeks. What are you guys doing?
It's must-see TV.
So last night was kind of the third meeting focused on the Castleton Village PUD proposal. The first meeting was mostly a presentation on it, the kind of attorney's presentation. The second meeting, representatives from Guilford County Schools came because there has been so much concern about potential overcrowding of schools. And also there was just more of a general discussion. And then last night's meeting was great. And I especially want to thank Matt for inviting Jason from Benchmark to facilitate the discussion. I thought that was,
very well.
yeah, I know, but for viewers at home,
Yes, I
seem to
was.
enjoy that too.
Very much.
So that was really helpful to just, let all of the planning board participate. And then he, was somebody who knows about Jamestown from helping us out with the comp plan and everything like that, but also is not as, it still can be a third party sort of outside of things. And so that went really well. And he, when he started off, he said that night was going to be discussing the what, so sort of concerns or ideas about the proposed development, but we wouldn't be getting into the how just yet. And so it was more breaking out kind of key ideas or things that had a lot of common concerns, some positive points too, but I mean, let's face it, mostly concerns and things that we would potentially want changed. And so that was really where the focus was. And that covered things like the location of amenities and commercial and different pieces, like different parts of the neighborhoods. External buffering, didn't get into as much internal just yet. Density obviously is a big deal. there were a small amount of talk about home styles, especially townhomes, but our next meeting is going to really focus a lot more on the look and feel of things like that. But really, and I'm going to check out some phone notes. The main things were the location of various things on the map, and, you know, really the density question. And so, for example, some of the things that were pointed out, you know, there's a lot of concern about this area where Mackey and Gilbert College meet. That's where the main amenity center and the pool and, you know, potentially the recreational area would all be right there. And it was pretty consistent across the board. People were concerned that that location just was not good. You know, you have Cedarwood right there, you have the existing townhomes, you're going to be putting a lot more. And so it was proposed, again, focusing more on general big picture, saying, you know, we really feel like that should be moved kind of more to the interior or somewhere else. We're not going to tell you where exactly to put it, but that was a concern. And then moving what is in the very top corner closest to sheets and things like that, that's where they had put the age targeted housing, potentially moving that in the place of where the recreation was, or at least something single family housing that would be facing Cedarwood across the street of single family housing. Let's see. There was also concern about the number of cul-de-sacs that are proposed. And we just want feedback on, is there a reason why there were so many of those? Because that really, if they're wanting maximum walkability in this area, just having everything dead into cul-de-sacs doesn't really do it. So there was also discussion that, you know, maybe because of topography, you would have to have a lot of cul-de-sacs, but so we're just hoping to get some answers on, you know, why so many and could there be fewer, to really make it a more welcoming and walkable area. We also talked about wanting curb and gutter the entire length of Mackey Road and having sidewalks there, making sure things are well lit, but not to the point where they would be disruptive to neighborhoods across the street. Talked a lot about buffering to block views of, you know, both for current citizens and then the folks who live within the neighborhoods, especially the ones who are going to be right up against larger roads, to, you know, and Dennis Scholl brought up having, you know, kind of large berms as that barrier and then taller trees on top of that. So just adding extra buffers that would buffer sound and also visibility and things like that. Let's see, and then density, you know, one of the big concerns was the calculations of the types of housing and the potential density, how it seems like they're including land that they can't develop within that. And we really want pure numbers on, okay, the areas that you can and intend to develop, really what's the real number as far as what's the density like there? Because if there are places where there's a giant ravine or, you know, pipeline running through that you can't build on, that's not, maybe that's not as fair to include. And then just, you know, we're wanting answers on how could this potentially affect existing town services, you know, how, and wastewater treatment and things like that. What kind of infrastructure, how is it going to tax our current infrastructure? And what does that mean for the rest of town? What would that mean for other areas in town that could be developed in the future? Are we going to, if we agree to this and a particular level of density, is that essentially going to mean that we couldn't serve, you know, if Oakdale, or if there's an undeveloped parcel of land that somebody would want to develop, would we not be able to say yes to that because we're pretty much all in with something else? So, you know, a lot of questions to be answered. Again, the discussion went really well, but there are still a lot of outstanding questions, and we're really going to be drilling down on the residential elements, like lot sizes and setbacks and architecture and things like that at the next meeting.
Now, when is the next meeting?
That is September 28th at 6.
28th.
Mm-hmm.
I was really glad to hear the conversation on the 3 different items. The density, the fact that it's being brought out, these 37 acres and whatever is being used in your calculation.
Mm-hmm.
True density is what you see, not that other acreage over there. So I'm really glad that they're focusing or at least bringing that out. I think that's very important. A couple of the other things was the civic center or civic area keeps getting talked about, bringing the sheriff's office or whatever EMS or those sort of things. I think the developers should make an earnest effort to talk with Guilford County first and see if they even care about, because they own all kinds of property out there right now. And I know that I was personally involved in the purchase over here behind the, over here off Oakdale and the building up in Summerfield. So there's a lot to be done, and just to say, well, we'll just give you that piece of property, just come on, move over. It's not gonna happen that easy, so I think.
And the location of that particular parcel right at Guilford and Guilford College, I know that was a big concern that, folks talked about last night, that would we even want anything there that you would, have to have cars coming in and out of? And, or since that is an area where, right up until that intersection, that had been proposed just as, green space there. I know it's hard to see. But, would it make sense just for them to, instead of having this little, relatively smaller plot there being something that would then require turning in and out of or something like that, would it make sense to just continue the green space there and have this be sort of a mega buffer between the development and this part of town? And I think it's just a question of, is there a particular vision for that piece? And if somebody came and said, yeah, we do need that for a substation and this is how it would be done, I think it would be easier to visualize versus just here.
Right.
Civic,
To your
church
point as
purpose.
well on town services, that the farmer's market keeps being brought up. If it's part of the town and the town's got to man it, they've got to police it, they've got to get permits or those sort of things. So that's something that, I don't know that we should even be calling it a farmer's market without, Matt or whoever says this is what it will take in personnel wise, because there's got to be some sort of a regulation. You can't set up your flea market stuff. It's got to be produce or those sort of things. So it's just real
And
early, but I appreciated hearing that conversation. And
Yeah.
the, whatever we got put in with the internet and all that, it was great to hear that you could actually hear every word instead of that
Excellent.
10th word you're going, what did he say?
Yeah.
So it was really good, and I hope that that helps the public, because this is very, very, very touchy, and we want to make sure that those comments get out there. And I think the folks you've got on the board, or that are on the board and volunteering to do it, are really putting their heart and their minds to it, so I appreciate it. Really good.
Yeah, it was a great discussion. I do, and when we voted for the last alternate position, and Jane Payne was a potential person to come on, but she had more recently put in her application, and I said, it would be really great if she could be integrated into this discussion, just especially because of her knowledge of Jamestown history. And so I'm hoping that definitely at the next meeting where we are talking more about housing styles and building styles and things like that, that she can, be welcome to the table and be able to share more of that knowledge. Because there were several historical type questions, or I definitely anticipate those coming up with these upcoming conversations that I think we need all hands on deck. So.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I thought it was very, you covered a whole lot, really. However, then you, like the big picture of the layout, but then it did start taking some form and some shape and nailing down some things. Because it is overwhelming. It's such a big project. So, I enjoy watching it on TV, so to speak.
Enjoyed watching a 3-hour.
Yeah.
She reminded me, I got on late. I had to put some brakes on something.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank
that
you.
report.
And I'll please tell the planning board, I appreciate, because I know they're going through a lot of research and spending a lot of time, and we really do appreciate it.
They're getting a lot of flack too. So,
Yeah.
I want to make sure to definitely highlight all the great things that they're doing. And it does really seem like, we've got a lot of good people there asking hard questions.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Anything else we need to report?
Not for me.
Katie, do we have anyone signed up for public comment period?
Nobody signed up.
Thank you. And is there any other business that you would like to address, council?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.